I'm not going to prolong things, Mr. Watkins. I want to get straight to just talking about some things as they relate to the civil rights era in your time. And as I told you earlier, we our theme is 100 years of excellence. And we can't talk about 100 years of excellence without talking about the civil rights movement and what that meant for our country, particularly African Americans. You know, during that time, there were times we had to fight for what America great guaranteed us. So, if you would share just a little bit about your times there in the civil rights movement in Jackson, Mississippi.
Well, it started off by my being very naive to the situation of segregation. Um, I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, moved to Jackson at an early age, was sheltered by my grandparents and by my mother and other relatives and friends. So I really didn't get out of the fence, more or less, to really know what was happening. But I knew what I could and could not do. I knew where I could and could not go. But when it comes to segregation, there wasn't a lot that I knew other than I went to a separate school. As a matter of fact, we had white families that lived right across from us. I grew up in I'm not sure whether you're familiar with Jackson, what they call the Midtown area now, and Mill Street separated us from the white section to the black section. The black was to the west of Lamar, and of course, east was the white section. And we was able to play with the little white boys and little white girls all the time. It was an unwritten rule, whereas we could not go into their house. And that same unwritten rule was there for them. They could not come into our house, but we could play all day. So growing up, I didn't know anything about it until the Freedom Riders came to Alabama. And I would see on the national news, it was coincidental that I spotted the national news one day trying to see what was on the other channel. And I saw these black individuals being beaten, being spat on, being watered down with fire hoses. And I just paused, what is this? And the next day I saw the same thing. And I still didn't know what was happening. My mother was at work during that time, and she was the only adult around that I could ask. So I went to school sometime in that week period, and I asked one of my teachers about the national news. Did anybody see the national news last night? And everybody nodded that they had. And I said, what's going on? And the teacher told me if I utter another word, he was going to send me to the principal's office. Like, shocked me. I want to know what's happening. So we got in a little group and we said, man, I think they called themselves the Freedom Riders. And they taking names and whooping, So we just got involved through television. And the Freedom Riders became our heroes and sheroes. Because the only heroes and sheroes that was out there was Superman, Wonder Woman, And, we looked up to those individuals as Superman, as a child. And the young ladies would Wonder Woman, and that's all we had. So I said, my hero is the Freedom Rider. And my friends said, that's my hero. And everybody in our little clique claimed the Freedom Riders as their hero. So this went on until school was about out. We got out of school in May during that period of time. And we out of school and, well, let me back up. Right before school was out, the principal come on the intercom and wish the kids a safe summer. Those of you who will be returning, I will expect to see you back here in September. Those of you who are going on to another school, remember what you learned here and make sure you carry yourself accordingly. And that was standard for him. The school I attended was Rowan. Rowan went from grade 1 to grade 9, first through the 9th. When you look at it now, you say that had to be awful. And it was. You have little first graders mingling with 9th graders, and to us, being in those lower categories, the higher was just like the grown folks. But that's the way they treated us back then. But anyway, and before he could the intercom, he turned it right back on. And it makes a sound. Once it comes on and goes off, like a little humming sound. And he came on and he said, oh, by the way, those so-called freedom riders might be coming to Jackson. And if they do not get involved. And he cut it off. Now we looked at each other. You know how you can hear and don't hear? And that's what happened. We heard him and we didn't hear him because we was waiting patiently on those freedom riders to come from Alabama to Mississippi. So we tracked them every day on the national news. And they was loading up en route to Jackson, Mississippi. But they didn't give a date that they was going to arrive here. And my friend, someone told my friend that they was going to be at the Masonic Temple, which is here in Jackson. And the distance from where I live and the Masonic Temple, it's a pretty good distance. But we got on our bicycles and we pedaled to the Masonic Temple because we thought we was going to see some freedom riders. And that did not happen. Once we got there, the meeting was over. But the presenter was asking, are there anyone here who would like to join forces with the freedom riders? And if so, meet us at the Greyhound bus station. I looked at my friend looked at me. We ran out, got on our bicycles and we pedaling, trying to get to the Greyhound bus station. So we make it to the Greyhound bus station. I mean, it's deserted. So we had our bicycles behind a school. Central School was the name of the school. And we waited where we could see the buses as they rode in. but there was no buses. So my friend said, let's walk out front and walk down the sidewalk. And as we walk in, we're going to be looking to our left to see if we can see what's going on. So we walking with our heads straight ahead, and our eyes was cut over in the bus station. Couldn't see nothing. So we walked to the almost to the end of the block. So we chose to come back up. And on the way back up, my friend, as a joke, he said, push me inside of the bus station. And before I could turn around and run or walk or whatever back out, I was detained by a police officer. What you doing up in here? And I told the truth. I said, well, my friend pushed me in here. What friend? He's out there. Where? He's out there somewhere. So he got a firm grip on my wrists and excuse me, and led me on the outside. And we on the outside, and he said, where? I looked to my left, I looked to my right. He couldn't be found. He was gone. He said, where is he? I said, sir, I don't know, but he was out here. He's not out here now. You lying. Come on. So he pulled me back in. He said, where you from? No, he said, what's your name? I said, Hezekiah Watkins. And what's your birthplace? I said, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Wait. It's all started from there. He yelled out, we have another one over here. And after saying that, you could hear the footstep, just running in my direction. I didn't know what was happening. All of these police officers with their helmets on and their billy club and running up to me and drawing back. They never hit me, but they drew back and I'm ducking. I'm trying to figure out what's happening. So, Lord, is he going to put me in the same situation what I saw on TV in Alabama? So we sat there for a while and maybe less than 30 minutes. And they picked me up and not picked me up. They just told me to stand up and walk on the outside. We went out the back door, and going out of the back door, there was a paddy wagon waiting there. And they opened the doors and told me to get in, and I did. And we drove and drove and drove and drove and drove some more. And by the time we made it to our destination, I was asleep. And at a place that I had never seen before. It kind of reminded me of a college campus somewhat. It was dark, early mornings, and nothing was moving. And the only thing I could see was different buildings here, a building there. So I didn't know where I was. I had told me to grab a mattress, and I grabbed the mattress and almost was unable to carry the mattress because I was a small guy, and the mattress was kind of heavy. And they opened this sale and told me to put it there on the floor. So okay, so I put it there on the floor. They gave me a blanket. I laid on the naked, mattress, and used the blanket to cover myself. It was kind of cold in there at night. So the next morning, I was awakened by an inmate. asking me, why are you here? And I replied, I don't know. Oh, yes, you do. Why are you here? They began to interrogate me. And actually, their interrogation was so intense until I'm crying now, um, because they're telling me I'm in prison. And I knew a little bit about, prison is like jail. And basically, that was it. I was just very naive when it came to um, prison situation. The only thing I can recall um, of a prison or a cell was Mayberry. I know that before your time, but they had this series of Mayberry, and they had to jail. I can recall that, but that series was nothing like real time. And breakfast came, and they took my breakfast. They just treated me real bad, slapping me, uh, kicking me, doing all kinds of things. But I think some of the things that I can talk about is um, they telling me the reason why I'm there. And the first guy said that I must have killed the white man, um, for them to not to give me a trial, because we had talked about what judge sent me, who was my lawyer, did I have a court appointed lawyer, all of these things that I knew nothing about. But I knew I wasn't in court because I remember Perry Mason, and there was nothing like that going on with me. So no, I never been to court. But they said, well, if you didn't go to court, you must have raped a white woman. And I said, well, no, I didn't rape a white woman. I'm just 13. He said, oh, you're older than 13. I said, no, I'm 13. Um, I went into the Greyhound bus station, and they arrested me. And they didn't believe that because most of them had been there for a few years, and they didn't know anything about the civil rights movement that was active in Mississippi or any other place. So um, being hit and kicked and I don't know all kinds of things was happening to me that I did not understand. I didn't understand. Um, I was told that they was gonna make a girl out of me, and that was one of the things that I just couldn't understand. Um, um, I wanted to almost laugh um, by this person telling me that he was going to make a girl out of me. And, you know, there's a pod, um, not a pod, there's a chapter in the Bible who that speak of being reborn again. Um, and I'm not sure where, but I do recall um, this person asking, how can I be reborn again? Do I enter my mother's womb for the second time? and be born. That was my mindset. You can't, you know, produce me again because number one, my mother is not here and my father is dead. That's my mindset at 13. So it was quite an ordeal going through all of the statements, all of the beatings that that took place in Parchment. For the most part, um, this will be with me forever and a day. Um, but let me just kind of change, if I may, man. Um, we had a governor by the name of Ross Burnett here in the state of Mississippi. And Ross was probably the most racist person that ever lived, based on the individuals that I've met, based on the books that I've read, and just based on individuals as a whole. During the time I was in Parchment, I'm told that Ross Burnett and John Kennedy, who's the president of the United States, was in conversation. And the president was still in the government. He did not want to see the same thing in Mississippi that had taken place in Alabama. And I'm told that the governor assured the president that this will not happen. I'm going to take care of those agitators. And I'm told that after the conversation, the governor called the correctional institution and told them to release me. And I am very proud of the governor. Uh, Based on the statement that I made earlier, I still stand by that. But if it had not been for the governor making that call, then Hezekiah Watkins wouldn't be here today. And I will always be thankful for the governor. I know it's kind of sound as though I'm contradicting myself, but I'm not. Once again, those things that I said out front, I stand by them. The things that I'm telling you now, I'm thankful for him. And I used to pray. I still pray. I used to send a special prayer for him for what he did. And they brought me back and they called my mother, told my mother to come to the Jackson Police Department. And she said, okay. Now, in the meantime, while I'm away, my mother is looking for me. And you're probably asking yourself, what about your friend? Well, my friend was just that, a friend who lived right across in front of me. You know, he was so close, we could spit on each other's porch if we so choose. But he was so afraid that he would not go and tell his mother nor my mom what had happened. And the reason being, back in those days, his mother would beat the out of him. Then my mother would have beat it out of him. And we had this lady called Miss Willie. Miss Willie loved to whip children. And he knew that Miss Willie was going to get the last beat and it was going to be serious. So he didn't say anything. He ran home and told his mom he was sick and got into bed. His mother came and felt his forehead and said, "You burning up, child." Gave him an aspirin or something. I don't know what was given. But later on that evening, my mom came to his house uh, to ask his mom, "Was I there?" She said, "No." She said, "Well, let me go back here and ask Troy." So she went back there, and he said, "Well, no, I haven't seen him since about 4 o'clock." And she said, "Well, yeah, because he's been in the house since about 5, talking about my friend." So that was out. So as I was locked up, my good friend was leading a search committee, looking for me all through the neighborhood, all in just everywhere, knowing where I was. Okay. So my mom come to the jail, and she had given up on me. As a matter of fact, the pastor and the police department had told her that there was no need of looking for me anymore, that I was somewhere dead. So my mom thought she was coming to the police department to identify my remains. So she walked in the room, and I'm in the back of the room, handcuffed with my hands behind me. And my mother spot me, and this is a true story. There was desks. There was like a training area for police officers. There was a desk, several chairs, and my mother hurdled every desk that was in front of her, jumped every chair that was in front of her to get to me. And we embraced, cried, and just fell to the floor. And one of the officers just let them be. Just let them enjoy each other. And they had to help us up. And we walking out of the police department. I'm just walking down the steps, and my mother is feeling my head. "You got a big bump right here. You got a cut here. And, there's a cut over here." You know how a mom would do with her child, and you have a bump here. I mean, she was dissecting me. But I love her. So we get home. So I can't wait to get in the house and take a bath and go to the playground. We didn't have a playground. We had to play at the local school. That was our playground. So I couldn't wait to run in the house and get a bath and run to the school and say, "Hey, I've been charged for prison." And, I would have been the kid on the block. So as I'm walking up the steps to get on the porch, my mom said, "When you get on the inside, drop them." I said, "Ma'am, you heard me. When you get on the inside, drop them." I said, I knew what was coming. But my mom's demeanor was totally different on the way home. And it changed just like that. But when she came in, they was dropped. And she came in with 3 branches off a tree. I think some type of elm tree. And she sat there and took her time, and she braided those limbs, just like you would braid you. You know how the young lady's hair braided. Okay. She sat there and talking very slow. "Do you know what you put me through?" It just went on and on. And I'm saying to myself now, I said that, "Just come on, beat me." And she did. Ooh, that was the worst beating. And when I said beating, I really mean beating. Because I had whips all over my arm, all of my chest, leg. And in doing so, and using that type of switch and the swell of whip. And if you're able to hit that same whip again, it bursts. And nothing is in it but blood. And your body look just like a monster type body. And after it was over with, she asked me, did I know why? I didn't say nothing. She asked me again, do you know why I beat you, boy? I told her no, which I didn't. She said, you disobeyed me. I told you don't take yourself riding freedom ride. And I was trying to explain. She didn't want to hear it. It's okay. So didn't go out the house because I was ashamed, because I had sores. Couldn't even put a shirt on. But it began to heal. And I had this young man by the name of James Bevel, who was one of the field secretaries in Jackson for Corps. Very bright young man, very, very intelligent young man who knew how to get things done. And someone told him about me, and he came by the house only during the time my mom had gone to work, trying to get me to come go and do some things with him. And I'm telling him, whatever it is, I don't want no parts of it. Because I'm still remembering that beatdown my mother put on me. Okay. So he decided to meet my mother. Now, my mother was a religious fanatic. I mean, she loved the Lord. Okay? And she knew the Bible. But James knew the Bible just as well. And they would get over there and talk about the Bible for hours. And if you talk about the Bible to my mother, you had her. And he had her. So he told her one day, I'm looking at all of these children in this community. I wonder how many of them know the Lord. My mother said, not many, not many. They said, I have an idea. We ought to do some type of Bible class. Let them learn about the Almighty, what he has done, what he can do. Oh, won't it be a great day? My mom enjoyed that. She said, yeah. So James came over, I don't know what night, what day or night or whatever. He came over with a box of Testament Bibles. And the word got out that we were going to do Bible class. My nickname is Heck. We're doing Bible class at Heck House. And there's going to be little giveaways. And the giveaway was cookies and a drink or a cake. Back during that time, that was a meal, believe it or not. And the first night we had maybe 8 students. The second night we had quite a few students. And it went on until we didn't have standing room on the porch. We didn't have standing room in the street. I mean, it was just like a football game or something. I mean, they were just on the outside keeping up so much noise you couldn't hear what was on the inside. But Bevel knew what he was doing. He was recruiting young freedom riders that actually made up the movement. He started bringing cases of cakes, and he would have a case of drinks. So even if you wasn't able to come inside, you was able to get a drink. So we go to church, and he asked my mom, could he go? She said yes. we get into church and he walked up to the pastor who was sitting in the pulpit and whisper in his ear. And I could see the pastor nodding yes. So when he got up to do his thing, he said, well, we have a guest minister who's going to bring us the message. And that guest minister was James. And he had everybody in the church crying because he was, I'm not going to say gangster, but he knew how to get you moving. He could sing well, he could preach well, and he knew the Bible. And on the way back home, my mother told him that if you promise me you will take care of my son, I will let him go with you and you could be a freedom rider. And that's when my journey really started. And I've been on that same journey ever since. Okay.
So with that journey, Mr. Mr. Watkins, tell us about some of the struggles that you encountered toward getting people to join into the movement and getting people to really embrace what the overarching task was to get Black people to really start to uplift themselves.
Well, it didn't take long and it wasn't hard because note that I mentioned he geared his attention to the young generation, not just those that lived in my area, but throughout the city of Jackson. And those was the one who made up the movement, was the young generation. Probably the oldest one was late 20s. And the youngest one was me at 13. And that journey became scary. It became very hard. It was discouraging. It was discouraging because of the older Blacks who had been through so much within their time. They had witnessed so much violence. They had witnessed so much hatred. They had just witnessed so much until they was afraid. They was afraid for their children. They was afraid for their grandchildren. So these young individuals had to go out on their own. They had to defy what their grandparents, what their parents had told them not to do because they had gone through it. Not only that, a lot of them had lost loved ones who was trying to stand up to the white man based on what was happening back in the 50s, the 60s, the 40s. They had lived that time and they didn't want to see the same thing happen to their young ones.
So what I'm hearing you say is that in a large part, the civil rights movement, the movement that existed for the betterment of African Americans, for a large part, that was led by young people.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Most definitely.
What would you say to the young people now? What is their place in continuing the fight for equality, and just in recognizing where we are as African Americans? What would you do to motivate and inspire them to continue to be aware of our place in America?
Well, that's a good question, ma'am. First of all, I would try to let them know where we are today, where we were in the 60s or early 70s. Show them what has happened since then. Um, we all have to be motivated in some form of fashion. And we don't know our history, and our history is not being told. So I had an uncle, he's no longer with us, but he used to say, boy, you need to know where you came from to know where you're going. You know, I used to hear him say that. Oh, I don't know what he's talking about. But the older I got, I realized that, the young folks don't know where they are headed to because they don't know the struggle that their parents, grandparents, friends, and others was in back in the day. And let me go a little further, if I may. You know, we talk about Black history, this being Black History Month, and all of the Blackness just jump out at you in February. But what happened in March, in April, in May, and so on and so on? Then you talk about Black history. Oh, Dr. King. Dr. King was one of the most brilliant individuals I ever met. Don't want to take nothing away from him, but he's no longer with us. And there will never, in my opinion, be another Dr. Martin Luther King. He just came along at the right time. His time was there then. So I tell the young folks, don't forget about Dr. King, praise him up. But on the other hand, what can you do? There's something for everybody to do if you just have the mindset to do it. And I was asked week before last, I'm sorry, by our group of students, well, what can I do? I'm 15 years old. So tell me, what can I do with this situation? My thing is, what situation do you have to be dealing with? She said, I really don't have a situation, but there's things that need to be done. I said, okay, what about your community? She said, what do you mean? Are there elderly in your community? Are there handicapped individuals in your community? Are there anyone in your community that need help? I say, if not, go to Stupa, go to Salvation Army. They always need volunteers. We're talking about a person who can get out and lead. We're talking about a person who can be able to get out and do something different. I also use this example. I asked this young lady, well, how many true friends do you have? And she replied, true friends? I said, yes, ma'am. Those the friend that you can call in the middle of the night and say, I'm depressed, I want to talk. And they'll stay on the phone with you. Those type friends. She said about 3. It's okay. Let's say tomorrow you take those 3 friends and you all say, well, look, I'm going to get some trash bags. I'm just going to walk the campus and pick up paper or whatever debris is out there. how many other students do you think would look at you and then go get a garbage bag? At least 3 or 4, maybe even more. And before you know, you have a movement. You have started something. This could be an every day, every week, every month thing. You know, look at your school and see, is there any of your classmates need tutoring? Look at your elementary school. Uh, just look around, look at your church. There's things could be done there. Just just look around. You know, I'm changing a little bit, but even at my age now, we have several things that we do out of this household. Every month, we feed the homeless. It's a must. You know? And I mentioned that to her, and she was surprised. She said, "Where do you go?" Well, we start off on 55 county line, but when they be standing around there, putting the bridge, we feed those. We come to Smith Park, and we end up at Poindexter Park, where the majority of them are. And we feed them. You know, I don't call the media. They say, look, Channel 12, 316, we're going to be out here at the park feeding the homeless. Why don't y'all come and film us? I'm not looking for no publicity. And when you go to do what you have to do, you don't have to look for no publicity. God looking at you. You know, your friends looking at you. But most importantly, if you're cleaning around the school, the principal gonna thank you. Even the judge is gonna thank you. So that's a little, a little help for him. I said, you can get rewarded in so many different ways. So to answer your question, I would tell the young folk to get involved. You've got to get involved because you look at a guy my age, I'm 73 years old. Thank you, Jesus, I'm still mobile, okay? But pretty soon I'm gonna have to pass my torch on to someone. And once I pass this torch, I don't want them to just sit there with this torch. You're gonna have to move. And there's too many of us adults. It's even some taking a step further. It's a lot of former freedom riders who just won't have nothing to do with nothing. You know, I don't know. I'm not going to speak for them, other than to say we can't, or at least I can't. I personally can't get them involved in anything. You know, I still believe in some way that we are somewhat leaders. I believe in some way we have to show individuals out there that we can still lead. I know I can. I can do everything that I did in the 60s except go to Parchment. I wouldn't go to Parchment for no man. None of that. But everything else, I'm game. Even getting individuals out to register was severely beaten just because I had an old lady trying to help her up the steps to go in the courthouse to vote. Or not to vote, I'm sorry, to register. You know, and speaking of registration, voter registration, blacks don't have to go through the things that some blacks went through. Did you know, ma'am, that when you went to certain courthouses, they had a jar of beans in order for you to register? You had to tell them the amount of beans was in there. Now, this actually happened to me in Greenwood, Mississippi. I took this lady up there, and it was a questionnaire about how many beans is in this jar. I told her, I said, write down 100. She wrote 100. And the man looked at it. Well, Sally, I see you pass. I said to myself, hell, he didn't know. He didn't know. So, but anyway, we must continue to make sure we are registered. Not just that, we need to make sure that on election day we get out and vote. And that's it. We just got to do it. It's a must. You know, if we I think it was Malcolm. Um, Let me just say it, if I can get it right. If you don't stand for anything, then you will fall. Yes, man. I think it was Malcolm, I'm not sure. But Dr. King also had one that if you don't believe in your project, or you don't believe that this is worth dying for, then you might as well be dead. I had problems with that one, but he would say it all the time. But I had problems. You know, I believed in the cause. I believed in what I was doing, but I don't want to die. But Dr. King said, you might as well be dead. I said, okay, but you know, I don't want to die, you know. But you know, that's it. Yes, ma'am. What's the next?
You can see me laughing. I didn't want to. I agree with you on that one. But I guess he was speaking to the fact that he was so passionate about what he believed in that he was willing. Now, understand his statement. As you say, I don't necessarily want to die for the cause in that same way. But I understand I understand what he was saying. He was willing to die for what he believed in. Mr. Watkins,
Yes, ma'am.
I could talk with you all day.
I have
I
time.
really could.
Okay. Put you on the spot.
I really could. Unfortunately, school is dictating a lot of my time these days.
Okay.
And I'm going to have to put a pin on our conversation.
Okay.
But I really do appreciate you for being giving of your time and your wisdom and your knowledge. I had an auntie who lived to be about 108. And one of my favorite things to do was to go, she was actually my great aunt. But one of my favorite things to do was to go and talk with her to learn. And I even think about now, there's so many memories that she had that I wish I have now in reference to pictures and this, that, and the other. But something that you said earlier is really, really important for our young people to do. Talk to the elders before before even we could, read a lot of history. That's how history was passed down, by talking to the elders and getting an understanding of who we are and where we come from, because it matters. It matters greatly for our trajectory of where we're going to understand those things. So I just thank you wholeheartedly for picking up the phone every time I call and letting me, interview you, talk with you for this hour. And I hope that you will program my number in your phone so that when I call, you will know who I am.
Yes, ma'am.
I thank you. And I thank you for what you have done throughout the whole movement for the benefit of all of us. You
You're
know,
welcome.
I really do. Really do. Because we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. So I really do appreciate that. I
Yes,
really
ma'am.
do. Thank your wife also, because I know she's behind the scenes, putting all everything together, checking the emails and getting us
That's
hooked up on Zoom as well, and sending your bio. So thank you for all of that. I really do appreciate it. I really do. And I got your number locked in now, okay?
yours is locked in too.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I'll be speaking with you um hopefully sooner than later.
Okay, then.
All
Sounds
right.
great.
Thank
Have
you
a good
so much. You
Yes,
too.
ma'am.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.